massive awards, a shocking upset, and a variety of come-from-behind victories. All of this and so much more happening in the world of Lawrence Tech athletics as we welcome you to episode number 3 of Blue Devils In Depth. Thank you for tuning in for this one as we have a lot to cover. John Stone, Robby, Elliott back here in the studio. And Robby, let's just knock this one out because this is a lot to handle. The game of the year so far, women's soccer outlasted the number 1 seed team, that being Siena Heights, in the semifinals of the WAC tournament. The match was scoreless throughout all regulation time, and so it did through 2 overtimes. And let's break down the stats before we go to the shootouts.
Yeah.
LTU had 11 shots, 6 total on goal, no corner kicks. Then we go to the flip side. Siena Heights had 28 shots, 14 on goal, 7 corners. And also 5 players, other than Gabby Nelson, their goalkeeper, 5 players played the full 110 minutes. 4 of those defensive players and 1 midfielder. What about that?
I mean, leaves me kind of speechless, to be honest with you. Covering soccer, if you watch the game at all, you understand the physical just tear it has on your body. So to think that they survived that, and not only survived it, but against the best competition in the conference, and then had enough energy to go out there and absolutely dominate the shootout, come on now. Like, that's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and LTU won the shootout in dominant fashion, 4-1, courtesy of the shootout goals by Jenny Deere, Hannah Paget, Abigail Gray, and Deanna Hill. And looking back, and one thing to make interest, Siena Heights, they made a goalkeeper switch right after all the regulation time, the 2 overtimes, so they brought in their other goalkeeper off the bench to handle the shootouts. It's definitely a risky move, but yet after watching the film, they already had their minds made up. And one thing about the other matchup, the other semifinals, it was the same thing. Uno and Aquinas, match was scoreless. Both teams got a goal apiece in the second overtime, but then Aquinas, though, this is actually kind of legitimate. Their goalkeeper was dealing with a shoulder injury at the end of the second overtime, so they made the switch. And that shootout went 7-6. I mean, talk about 2 semifinal matchups. And also Aquinas, they were the only ranked team in the entire WAC conference to be in the NAIA standings.
It's all leading up to being quite a WAC championship. I'm excited to, see the result of it. But like you said, the whole thought process behind that, you would say, is get somebody fresh in there. You take a beating, and especially when you're playing this Lawrence Tech women's team, they shoot at such an efficient rate. They will get a lot of shots on net, but I think the stat that needs to be looked at the most is the shots on goal. How many times are you actually hitting that goalie, putting pressure on that goalie? Because it's mentally and physically draining when you are putting up over 50% of your shots on net. So LTU has done a great job of that, especially in this postseason run, which, if you want to take a little step back, in the Madonna game, they did the best job at. They were truly, I would say, the reason why you outlast that opponent 3-0 and you have the utmost confidence to walk into a Siena Heights game and feel physically ready and mentally ready is because you capitalized on all of your opportunities. Madonna actually dominated in time of possession in that game. However, Lawrence Tech took advantage of every single opportunity, including the highlight play, the 30-yard free kick from Hannah Paget. From a freshman, man, it doesn't get better than that.
On a free kick, on a line, just on a bullet. And she took the second shootout goal, and it was just that, a bullet, like no chance whatsoever. I thought the video was like glitching as it was going by, but no, that's just how quick the shot was. So now Lawrence Tech will be competing and trying to capture their first ever WAC tournament championship, and for that second auto bid into the NAI National Tournament. Siena Heights, they got nothing to worry about because they're already in since they were the number 1 seed. Aquinas still has a great chance because they were still ranked high within the top 10 rankings of NAI. They still got one of those large 13 bits. In that game, the WAC Tournament Championship will be November 11th at Racer Stadium in Lima, Ohio. What a game, the matchup.
I mean, with Lawrence Tech having the confidence to capitalize on big opportunities, but I think the reason why this team can be so confident going into this is because when you got a goaltender like Nelson between the pipes, I mean, she just won WAC Defensive Player of the Week, and she's just continuing to show up in these big games. When you know you're a really good goalkeeper, when you are almost shutting an opponent out in a shootout, that's when you know you're legit. And going into a WAC championship and going into a tournament run like this, it's all about, we talked about on the last podcast, for many sports teams, it's about getting hot at the right time. This team is hot at the right time. The confidence is through the roof. I'm excited. I truly think there is no doubt in my mind and no doubt in those players' minds that they can walk in and take this thing with ease.
It definitely should be a great match because Uno is looking for their first tournament championship since 2019. And that team has a lot of great talent on their end. But let's transition over to the men's because unfortunately for them, they fell to Madonna in the quarterfinals. It was at the same time as the women's semis. But the way that it finished, it was just too good to be true. A late goal with 17 seconds remaining on the clock. Madonna just escaped on their home turf with the victory.
It's tough to be a Blue Devil that weekend because you want the sweep. This is your rival Madonna, but I think the true takeaway is, like I just talked about in the women's game, it's all about how much you're shooting and how much shots you're getting on net. Obviously, you can't score without putting those shots on net. And Malachino, man, he's had a great year. It's just tough that you have your worst game in this setting. But honestly, the fact that they responded as quick as they did after the I think the first goal came within the first, I don't know, was it the 15th minute of the game, I believe? They were 1-1 most of the game. Malachino, he's getting hit a lot, but, once again, he's holding his own like he has all year. And those late goals, man, those shots that you expect, they're high-pressure shots, 17 seconds left in the game. You can almost see overtime, and yet you slip one by. I don't know how else to put it than that. You can't get outshot in those moments. You got to capitalize on opportunities, and just they're on the short end of a bad stick. But that's another team that you just saw kind of slow down towards the end of the season. They started off unbelievable. I believe they were competing for the 1 or 2 seed in terms of the conference. Am I correct?
Yeah, they were at the number 1 spot, and then they lost 3 straight, and then towards the tail end they were 1 out of 2. And therefore, they went from the number 1 spot down to the number 5 seed. So then they took on the number 3 seed, that being Madonna. So to be at the top, and Will Dyer's team, they got nothing to worry about. This team is full of talent. They were on a hot streak as all it can be, and so therefore, just things kind of fell off, and which is still a lot to learn.
Absolutely. It's a lot to learn, and, you take this away, you kind of have this chip on your shoulder now. Like, you were 17 seconds away from possibly getting a little bit of a breather, getting an opportunity to regroup and hopefully figure out a new game plan to get a ball into the net to end the thing and continue on your tournament run, and hopefully you regain those fumes, those flames from the early on in the season. But like you said, Will Dyer is a great coach. This guy is leading this program in the right direction. We've seen the potential of this team. I truly think you're going to see this team come back for vengeance next year and make a really good run.
Definitely for vengeance. Will Dyer, the founder of this program. So we transition now from the shockers to the major headlines, and that is our very own athletic director, Marianne Meltzer, being recognized by the Intercollegiate Women's Lacrosse Coaches Association, as Marianne Meltzer just got honored with the Diane Gebby Akins Memorial Award, a prestigious award in the world of women's lacrosse, and not just for her contributions as the head coach of last year's national champions, but just her contributions overall to the entire sport. And she will be recognized for this award on November the 16th at the Hilton Bayfront in St. Petersburg, Florida.
It's a big deal when you're going down to the Sunshine State, right? But I think there's something that needs to be said and something that needs to be pointed out. The game of lacrosse, I played it, so I know a little bit about the history of it and just how much this has been a progressing sport in terms of high school athletics, in terms of college athletics, in terms of professional athletics as well. If you aren't familiar with the Premier Lacrosse League, something to check out. So to see a woman like this, who's now in a leadership role like the athletic director for an institution that is just now starting to get back in athletics, that says so much. That is something you pitch to your recruits, to be honest with you, especially to these men's and women's lacrosse recruits who are going to see that there is someone in power who cares about the sport and cares about the development of this game at this university.
Definitely one to remember for Marianne Meltzer. Congratulations to her again, a well-deserved honor, as that will be taking place, the 2023 IWLCA Honors Dinner and Hall of Fame induction. Just a great event just to be a part of regardless.
Absolutely.
This past week, the Wolverine Hoosier Athletic Conference announced the all-conference and all-academic teams for women's soccer, and a lot of members of our very own women's soccer team were elected. Deanna Hill elected for first team. Abigail Gray and Hannah Paget voted for second team. Hinata Takashima was a part of the newcomers list, as she was the newly acquired talent here at Lawrence Tech. And Neela Wilson was named Lawrence Tech's Champion of Characters. So talk to me about that list of there. That is all the all-conference list right there.
That is something as well. We just talked about, an athletic director making a great statement for her own athletic program, something that you want to promote. This is also something you want to promote. When you have the athletes on the field that are making those lists, that is like, especially when you see somebody like Hannah Pageant, who is now a second-team all-conference as a freshman. That is huge to show that there's development. The seniors who are getting it, the upperclassmen who are developing into all-conference players, but that you have the ability to go out and recruit players who are going to come in and make a difference right away. That is just all pointing to things in the right direction. That's what draws in recruits. That's what, makes people who are, maybe transferring, they see a girl like Hannah Pageant who's like, oh, this player's legit. This player is going to be the future of this program. I want to come play with her, team up, and then you see the success actually happening on the field. Not only are you getting accolades in terms of players, but you're now one win away from being conference champions.
In addition to the all-conference selections, we go now to the all-academic teams. 18 total players were honorees. And for those of you who don't know, to qualify for an all-academic team, you must be of sophomore, junior, or seniors and carry an overall GPA of at least 3.25 to be honored as an member of all academic teams. I did so my senior year.
Shout out to you, John. That's a great accomplishment.
And I didn't even know until towards the very end. I didn't even try,
wow.
But yet I just contributed because I knew I just had to keep on going. Whether it's on field or off the field, in the classroom, you're a student athlete.
Absolutely.
That's why the word student is in front of the athlete.
Yes.
Your academics will always come first in this.
And we're two college athletes, so we know that this is a true honor. This is something that is not actually easy. But are we surprised that 18 individuals of this institution, we know this is a place that actually honors honors academics over athletics. And I truly think that is something else that you love to promote. It's a true honor when you can say as a team that your cumulative GPA is well above that, is above that mark that requires you to get into the just consideration for this award. So shout out to all those athletes. Ability to keep above a 3.25 with the busy schedules. It's not easy being a student athlete, even at the NAI level. The NCAA, a lot of people like to say that that's hard. I think this is just as hard from people who are giving me, what a day in a life is like there. It's the same thing. So shout out to those people. That is a truly remarkable honor and one you should be proud of.
Going together quite a team this year. So now we transition to something I like to call the little quick stretch. So, fast-paced action. We start with women's volleyball. They dropped their last 3 matches of conference play, giving them a 500 record, not only in conference, but also overall. 12-12, 10-10. And so now, Lawrence Tech will be competing as the number 6 seed going into the WAC tournament playoffs as they face off against Siena Heights. That will be on Wednesday, November the 8th. Men's golf, they finished their fall season back on October the 24th when we last spoke. And for day 1, they were doing so well. They finished in a tie for second place. And unfortunately on day 2, they dropped down to 7th out of 15 with a 2-day total of 642 strokes. Now, November the 3rd, it was a busy day because both cross-country teams competed in the WAC championships. Men's took 5th place, women's took 6th. Not as impressive as it was for last year when men's took 3rd last year, women's took 5th. But I believe that will be higher enough finishing to get them to the NAIA National Championships that will be taking place on November the 17th in Vancouver, Washington, as we await results to see if Lawrence Tech qualified. But during the wait, the past couple of days, 3 total commitments were made to join the cross-country teams next year. 2 on the side of the men's team, 1 on the side of women's. Your quick thoughts on commitments?
That's huge. It's huge, especially at this point in the season, this early on, because, these athletes have all this time. And you're in high school, right? So you don't graduate until May. And to get those commitments this early on while your season is just wrapping up, it's kind of a nod of just it's not even a nod. It's a sigh of relief for these coaches that these recruits are, that they know that their program is going to get extended. Because at some point in time, if the recruiting, especially in a sport like this where it's harder to get recruits to come to a smaller level program like this, I don't think so. I think that these recruits are wanting to come, and that the fact that they are now getting them, they're showing results to them, and which is ultimately going to lead to their commitments, competing at the NAI National Championship level, going to Vancouver, Washington. It's hard not to, say that and have a recruit be very intrigued, like, hey, that could be me next year, right? So it's great. I love to hear it, knowing that our programs are still expanding and still moving forward. Men's
and women's bowling were in action of the first 2 WAC jamborees. And women's took 6th on day 1 and 8th place on day 2. Men's showed up, and they took 1st place finish on day 1 and a 5th place finish on day number 2. Men's jumped from number 5 all the way up to number 3 in the national rankings. And now, so both teams are on an extended break because the 3rd Jamboree of the WAC is not until December 9th in Jackson, Michigan at the Jax 60 Lanes.
Yep. A jamboree. Hold on. I never knew that they were called a jamboree. That's an interesting fact that I now know. But
fun.
It is. It kind of is. I love that name. But to comment just on the results of this, like we talked about it, a team that doesn't get complacent, doesn't let the hangover of winning a national championship get in the way of, just their next season. And we are seeing that fully on display for the men's team. They are just continuing to go up that rise. It was the men's team, correct, that won the national championship. I don't have that wrong. I've been known to, get things wrong in the air sometimes. So I'm just clarifying with you.
No,
so anyways,
right
yeah, so they're up to number 3 now. They're looking to make that push back into the number 1 spot. And who knows? Do we get a back-to-back? Do we have the first ever back-to-back national champion in LTU athletics? That'd be a really cool thing to say. It's just a representative of LTU athletics.
Last bit on the quick stretch. Esports has a busy 3-day schedule. Rocket League back on November the 6th. Overwatch night versus Minnesota State and University of Houston on November the 7th. And then Valorant and Call of Duty November the 8th. All this leading up to the Rocket League WAC Championship that's hosted by Lawrence Tech on November the 11th.
An event like that is huge. Huge to host. We talked about that in the last episode. But like you said, this is jam-packed, man. The esports is flying. There is so much going on, and it's so good. It's so good for the brand. It's so good for something that is just up and coming. This is something we talked about in the last episode. This is I think 2 years, really esports has kind of made its way into the collegiate space, at least at this level of like the NAI level. So it's cool to see, man. It's cool to see that there's so many teams and there's so many people participating and that we're competing at a high level and doing it right here where we are standing on Lawrence Tech's campus.
It is just amazing to watch the growth of everything that is happening. So from the quick stretch, we go to the ice rinks. Women's D2 has won 4 out of their last 5, and most recently winning 2 out of 3 from the Pittsburgh Showcase. They just unfortunately ran out of time against Navy. It was a 4-3 loss, but still nothing to basically be ashamed of. So D2 will be facing West Virginia on November the 10th and 11th, this upcoming weekend, Friday and Saturday. Men's Division 3, they've won 6 straight. And therefore, after sweeping Ferris State, now turn their attention to probably their biggest test of the season so far, and that is the D3 club team of Purdue University. This team is 9-1 so far.
Wow. Quite a run. First off, shout out to the D3 team, making 6 straight wins. That's huge. And like you said, coming off wins against bigger schools like Ferris State, it all leads up to this, right? Like now here's the true battle test. How did your guys face off against a club team of a Division I level caliber team? I'm super excited to watch that. I don't know if I have any early predictions, but it's going to be, no matter what, a great battle on the ice.
Those matchups will be on November the 17th and the 18th. So let's talk about some comebacks. And therefore, wrapping up on the ice, the Division I team, they had a lot to handle because they were down by 2 goals for the first 2 periods against Aquinas, and then they went off in the 3rd period, scoring 4 goals to win Game 1, 6-4, and then the next day, out in Grand Rapids, they took care of business, winning Game 2, 5-1. And now, D1, they're going to have another test just like D3 because D1's going to be facing off against unbeaten University of Michigan Dearborn.
Yeah. So once again, big test. But I just want to comment on those 2 wins. It seemed like something switched in this team because all of a sudden they were just going after the net. I mean, shots after shots, just sending people. And there was just every rebounded shot, every shot that was rebounded off, they were getting another shot off. It was truly remarkable that after, like you said, they were down 2 and then all of a sudden it snapped. And then they carried that over into the next game. So now you only have to think, right? U of M Dearborn's got to be thinking, this team's got something going. They figured something out, and who knows? Do they give them their first loss? I guess we will see.
We will see, definitely, and that will be also on November the 17th and 18th following Division III. And a senior day comeback is the story for Lawrence Tech football as the Blue Devils hung with and clipped Taylor University by a final of 41-37. The second year of the season and the first in conference play, Alex Osman through 25 passes, 34 attempts, a total of 292 yards. The running backs all combined for 113 yards. Jalen Wallace at 125 reception yards on 10 catches.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about senior day. We had some seniors get to highlight. Britton got that touchdown, but it was a day about the freshman quarterback, the young kid, having a career day when we needed it most. This team has had an identity of running the football so well, and this game they kind of they went away from their identity because things were working. Alex was able to get into a groove. I actually was just over in our office, and I saw him. Our football facilities are right below where we are standing right now, and they were out in the parking lot dancing. So, the vibes are good with this team. They finally pick up that second win of the season. They're going into a game against Madonna that we would think that they're going to win. I will actually be there, but I just wanted to comment on the fact that I think the thing that worked the best for them is, and I think you'll agree with this, they got their athletes. They utilized their best athletes in space. There's some guys in this team that truly are really great athletes. And you watch a game like this, you watch Osmond get hot and have the first drive that he did. That's kind of been a common theme. We watched it in the first game of the year against Indiana Wesleyan. I think all of our eyes opened big. We're like, oh, wait, there might be something different here. But that's been a theme in these home games, that they've been able to get these first drives going, which is interesting because those mainly in football are scripted drives. There's 10 to 20 plays, that they know that they're going to run and they're going to call no matter what the situation is. So you see this game, you see the performance of these guys, the utilization of their athletes. It makes you scratch your head at the potential of what this team could be if they could just figure some other things out. And we're not qualified enough to talk about what the actual problems are, point fingers, but it's truly makes me scratch my head at what the potential of this team could be.
And now all the eyes are on Lawrence Tech as they take on Madonna in the I-96 County Line Classic. That'll be on November the 11th in Livonia. Lawrence Tech has a chance to match up to what their season was last year at a 3-7 finish. And just one comment, Lawrence Tech this year on Senior Day, so far, 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4 on Senior Days.
Make every night Senior night, and you will win. That is the recipe for success for LTU football.
We're going to finish up this episode on the hardwood, and that is with basketball. One last non-conference game before conference basically starts. Men's basketball will face off against Ohio Christian University November the 7th at 7 p.m., taking on the Trailblazers. Men's is trying to make it back-to-back wins. Women's is currently still in search of their first win. They're only 2 games in. They're 0-2. Kate Jacobs recorded a double-double in their loss to St. Xavier. But now both teams will have to turn their focus, especially for men's afterwards. They got Concordia coming up for conference matchups, and that will be this upcoming Saturday on November the 11th.
Right, and they got a little bit of a tough non-conference stretch. I'm not going to be biased here, but the Spring Arbor team that they will play the game after Ohio Christian, they're a tough team, man. They're a team that's got a great sophomore and a team that, has really started to come into their own and beat some really good crossroads opponents. But like we just said, I think it's a point to highlight that they're only 3 games in. Both teams, the men's is 3 games, women's is 2 games. In basketball, it's tough to find your groove early on. If you don't find it right away, that's not an alarming thing. We just saw Michigan State lose to James Madison.
Yes.
But if you remember the last time Michigan State lost a huge marquee matchup like that, they actually won the national championship that year. So it's not about how you start this race, man. It's about how you finish, and both these teams will find their grooves, I believe.
Women's will face off at 1 p.m. against Concordia, and then men's will follow at 3 p.m. And just one thing to mention about men's this year is that the top picks to finish in first place, it is ridiculous off the books. Look at these powerhouses within the top 4. You have Lourdes, you have Rochester, you have Indiana Tech, and you have got Madonna. Watching these teams last year, I'm thinking there's no way there's a clear winner. It's just going to go into multiple playoffs.
Yeah, it's a loaded conference here in the WAC. And even the teams of like Cornerstone who've had recent past success, you could see them as a dark horse. You could see Lawrence Tech as a dark horse. You just never know. But like you said, the top 4 of this conference are going to be teams that we're all going to see in the top 25 at one point in this season. Whether they stay there or not, it's a loaded conference. Basketball around here in the NAIA in the Midwest area, it's not to be messed with. It's not to be slept on.
No, definitely. No terms and no teams of athletics is ever to be messed upon when coming to this state, and let alone at this side of the city. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in. Episode number 3, Blue Devils in Death. Robby Elliott, John Stowe, we tell you to tune in to all things LTU athletics.